Welcome to Does It Matter by Brainy Ballers, where we dissect the game with cutting-edge analytics to give you the upper hand. We analyze everything from hand sizes to average depth of targets to uncover hidden trends that no one else sees. Say goodbye to guesswork and hello to data-driven domination. Because here at Brainy Ballers, we don't just watch the game, we understand it. So get ready, it's podcast time.
Okay, here's a question for you. Does a single athletic measurement, just one number, truly predict who's going to make it big in pro sports? Especially thinking about fantasy football wide receivers? It's a cutthroat world out there.
Absolutely.
Today, we're diving deep into one specific metric, burst score.
Right. That's the one from Player Profiler, measuring that short area explosiveness. Think broad jump, vertical jump, that kind of thing.
Exactly. We're pulling this from a really thorough Does It Matter series that looked into its actual predictive power.
Yeah, and our mission for you today is basically to unpack all that research. You want to show you what the numbers really say and help you figure out if and maybe how much this burst score actually matters when you're scouting future prospects.
Well, the researchers looked at a lot of data, right? Top 50 fantasy finishers each year.
Yep, using PPR scores going way back to 2003. And they did this interesting comparison. They took the real top performers and compared them against the guys ranked 41st to 50th.
Ah, the bottom 10 of that group they analyzed.
Exactly. That was the setup. Okay, let's get into it.
So when they first crunched the numbers, or maybe even just eyeballed the charts, what did they see? Was there like an obvious pattern?
Well, initially, yeah, there was something visually intriguing. You could kind of see a trend where players with higher burst scores tended to score more fantasy points. In fact, check this out. In 14 of the 21 seasons, they looked at that's like 2/3 of the time. Top 5 fantasy guys had higher burst scores than the guys ranked much lower, in that 31st to 50th range.
So on the surface, it looks like, okay, maybe there's something really solid here.
Exactly. Looked quite promising at first glance.
That sounds like a strong start then. So if the eye test suggested a link, what's next? Did they try and find like a magic number?
Yeah. Trying to pinpoint an optimal threshold. They played around with the values quite a bit, testing different cutoffs.
Right.
And they landed on a burst score of...
Do you want to start dominating your drafts? At BrainyBallers.com, we've researched every metric under the sun for you to find which ones are best linked to fantasy points. You can access hundreds of metrics to sharpen your scouting abilities so you know which metrics matter and which are just noise. Stop guessing on which thresholds to look for within each metric. Big numbers can be misleading or irrelevant. Our Ultimate Athlete Blueprints reveal essential scouting metrics, their importance, and benchmarks within each metric that help predict a player's probability of being a success or bust. Elevate your scouting ability with Brainy Ballers Ultimate Athlete Blueprints today. Click the link in the description. Now back to the show.
133 and above.
133, okay.
Yeah. Players hitting that mark, or higher, showed up about 15.8% more often in the top 10 fantasy finishers compared to that bottom 10 group.
15.8%. So again, feels like maybe we're zeroing in on something useful.
It felt that way. It seemed like, okay, here's a concrete number to look for.
All right, but here's where it gets kind of fascinating, right? Because despite that visual pattern, the cold, hard statistics told a very different story. Using the standard Pearson value, what did that show? How strong was the actual correlation?
Yeah, this is the kicker. The Pearson value was 0.076. You usually want to see something like 0.1 or higher, especially in like sports science, to say there's a meaningful connection.
And just for context, how does that compare to something else scouts look at, like QB draft capital?
Great comparison. QB draft capital, which pretty much everyone agrees matters, has a Pearson value of negative 0.219. It shows a much stronger relationship, even though it's inverse. Way stronger than 0.076.
Wow. Okay, so what looks good visually doesn't hold up statistically. It's almost like a statistical mirage.
Precisely. The hard math just didn't back up the initial visual impression.
And I think they also looked at this over time, didn't they? Over the last couple of decades. Did burst score become more or less important?
They did. And as if the weak correlation wasn't enough, the trend over the last 2 decades actually showed burst score significance declining. Slightly, but declining nonetheless.
Oh, it's not just weak. It might actually be getting weaker as an indicator.
Seems that way. Which really makes you think about how useful these specific physical metrics are long-term, especially as the game itself changes.
Okay, so what does all this mean for you, the listener, trying to figure out who to draft or scout?
It seems like, yes, there's technically a number, that 133 burst score, if you really want to use it.
If you insist.
But its overall ability to predict fantasy success is, frankly, pretty weak.
Very weak.
And it might even be fading a bit over time. It's a perfect example of something that looks shiny but doesn't have much substance underneath, predictively speaking.
Exactly. It's a very, very small piece of a huge puzzle. You definitely shouldn't be using it in isolation.
So it's not the silver bullet.
Not even close.
Yeah.
And this whole deep dive, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? We're drowning in data these days. How do you actually tell which metrics truly move the needle versus the ones that just offer, a slight glimpse? What other metric that seems so obvious, so intuitive, might actually be less important than we assume when you really put them under the microscope?